You may think that you know everything about boss damage dealers, but I'm here to take a deep dive into them. Hello everybody, I'm Roadblock and this is a Raid Shadow Legends video, and today we're going to take a look at boss damage dealers specifically. We recently talked about debuffers and nukers already, and now we're going to jump into what I call boss killers essentially. And I do think there's a big distinction there, and we're going to get into that, but I wanted to clarify one quick thing. I saw a comment where somebody was asking in the debuffer video if I could do a video on buffers, and I will. Yes, that is going to be under the support one. I was going to do it today simply because of your comment, but I gotta go to bed, and I'm recording way later than I wanted to because I just couldn't get the brain to focus because I had to do Hydra, Clan v Clan score. It's just been nuts. So we're gonna focus on boss killers because I think it's going to be a shorter video, and then I can get to bed so I'm not exhausted for work tomorrow. So that's the game plan today, guys. So I do apologize. I did read that comment though. Thank you for that comment. And I wanted to address that at the beginning of the video so that I can tell you guys, hey, if you guys want me to cover something, let me know in the comments. I read them. I read every single comment. Let's talk about boss killers. So there's a few specific ones that I want to talk about. Listen up. I just got a new promo link that you can use to follow along with me on my latest free-to-play adventure and get a free Elenaril as well as 3 more powerful epics as you level up. Here's how to do it. Log out of Plarium Play and uninstall. Click the link in the description and register with a brand new email. Launch Raid and complete the tutorial. Go to your inbox and claim your first champ. Don't miss out on your chance to get Elenaril right after signing up, as well as Fayne, Uugo, and Tagoar as you progress through Raid. Click on my link right now and let's crush this together. But let's kind of talk about what makes a champion a boss killer, right? Because there's a lot of different types of bosses, and there's a lot of different types of boss killers. And it's very important, in my opinion, to understand the distinction between nukers and boss killers, also to understand the differences between why some boss killers are good here and maybe not so good there. Now, let's talk what we mean by a boss. So, Demon Lord, Hydra, Chimera, these are bosses, right? These are quite literally clan bosses. But then we have dungeon bosses, right? In the form of Dragon, Fire Knight, Spider, Sand Devil, Phantom Shogun Grove. And then we have Doom Tower bosses, right? And so everything's going to be a little bit different. You're not always going to use the same boss killer in every area of the game, and that's, like I said, it's very important to really understand that. So my boss killer on Griffin is going to be all the enemy max HP champions, but my boss killer on Bommel is going to be a bomb champion. Right? Because Bommel is weak to bombs. Or it's gonna be my Lady Annabelle when all of them die. So, right? And likewise with Scarab, I am still using enemy max HP, but I have to build a different team around them to get that usefulness. So let's kind of take a deep dive into the champions themselves. We'll talk right away. We'll go right for the big kahuna, Newt. We'll start with Newt. I almost started with Acrizia there. I don't know if you guys saw me hover over her, but we'll start with Newt because Newt is just one of the more popular ones, one of the more wanted ones, and probably, okay, this is going to come off incorrectly to a lot of you, but I'm going to say easier to get. But I want to clarify. Newt is easier to get than Acrizia, who is a Void legendary, right? He is not Void, right? I'm not saying, I know there are a ton of you out there. Did you say he's easy to get? No, he's not easy to get. No one champion is really easy to get unless they're free, right? But Newt is at least not Void like Acrizia, and a ninja we can't get anymore, right? We can't pull Ninja from Shards, who's another boss killer we're going to talk about. And then we're going to go into some of the more niche ones as well. So let's talk about Newt. So what makes Newt so special is he has a triple hitter A3. Each hit decreases the target's defense by 3%, stacking up to 30%. And each hit heals him, and the damage is based on enemy max HP, which is massively important. Enemy max HP, so we'll talk about that a little bit. So what that essentially means is that the damage scales off of the enemy's max HP. So you're going to do a percentage of damage based on whatever multipliers that they provide for the champion and your crit damage. So it's really beneficial to high HP bosses. Now, Newt brings a lot more than that. We're going to focus on his damage dealing abilities to bosses here, but he's also really good in the fact that he brings turn meter decrease, and he brings decrease attack and weaken and a counter attack to keep doing that turn meter decrease, right? So there's a lot in his kit that makes him good, but we're going to focus on the damage today because that's what we're here to talk about, and that's this ability. Now, there's several examples of this in use. One that I personally love is my Sand Devil team. I've never really made a distinct video on this team because it's pretty well known, but to be honest, I wouldn't even call this like the Newt Godseeker team. This is just Godseeker X team. Like, any damage dealer can technically go in here. You're going to have some that are going to be more successful and faster like Newt, but you could put most damage dealers in here. So we'll go ahead and run this really quickly, and then I'll probably pause halfway through to let it end because I don't want to be sitting here forever. But you're going to see here, Newt gets revived. Boom, boom, boom. Those are massive hits for Sand Devil because right now, that was his sleep form. I think we're going to get a hit on him with that ability when he's still out of his sleep form. Sorry. Boom, boom, boom. Still big damage, right? And that's enemy max HP for you, hard at work. So this just really emphasizes the power of enemy max HP when it comes to bosses. If I was to bring other damage dealers in here, I'm going to have a hard time. Now, some of you are like, well, Ninja's really good against Sand Devil. He is, but not this affinity, right? Like, he's going to be weaker against this affinity. But there are other champions you can bring here. Burners are good. Like, you can get away with a lot. So, but I love this team. It's just quick. It's consistent. You know, it's a good team, but I wanted to highlight it here because it really kind of showcases that enemy max HP at work. Do you need this team anymore after a bunch of the nerfs and stuff? Probably not, but I just wanted, it's just a team that I still run, but I really wanted to focus and emphasize, you know, what that enemy max HP looks like. If I threw another normal damage dealer in here, this would be a much longer run. So that kind of showcases enemy max HP just a little bit there. But there are areas in the game where you don't want enemy max HP. And it sounds a little counterintuitive. And there's always going to be someone that's going to argue with me in the comments. But listen, when it comes to Clan Boss, I am not a fan of Newt in Clan Boss. And now we can take a look here at my clan. Ignore the tightest teams, right? But you'll see, like, we don't have a lot of Newts doing damage. So here I am doing 300 million with Ninja, right? And a very similar team. I think this is a killable team, so not similar at all, actually, because my team lasts longer. So that's not apples to oranges. But here's another great example, right? We've got Turvold in here as the damage dealer in Vodka's team, right? You'd think, well, what about Newt? What about Acrizio? Like, why Turvold, right? Well, because Turvold just hits really, really hard. Now, if I had to guess, and I'm pretty sure I'm right on this, the Demon Lord has far less defense than a lot of other bosses do at this, you know, because it's kind of an earlier boss, you know, it's kind of an early game boss. Yes, Ultra Nightmare is hard and it's not early game content, but this is one of the, you know, very early on bosses that you're going to deal with, and we're going to talk about the different levels of bosses in a second. But the clan boss does also reduce enemy max HP damage by a lot, and that's important to understand because he doesn't reduce the damage dealt to him by people that just hit really hard. Something like a Turvold, something like a Ninja, right? They just hit really, really hard. So doesn't really matter, like, there's no cap on Ninja's damage, but if I put Newt in that position or Acrizia in that position, there is a cap. There's a limit to the amount of damage that they can do. And that's important to understand when it comes to boss damage dealers. And this goes on for Hydra as well. Now, I think Chimera, at least at my stage in the game, is a bit of an exception to that, where I actually prefer to bring enemy max HP nukers for Chimera specifically. But for Hydra, I don't bring newts. And there was a time, like my free-to-play, if it was active, would still rock a newt in Hydra. Because newt can do pretty good in Hydra, but you're always going to find people that are going to do far better than those limited enemy max HP damage dealers. And case in point is my Nightmare team. Now, full disclosure, this is underwhelming. I would prefer to have done about 200 million more damage than this, but this team is pretty flawed, and I have to manual it, and somebody died early. We were in first place by a pretty good margin, so I'm going to take that score and but it's not like I did no damage, right? I still did pretty reasonable damage here. So, but if we take a look at this, like Acrizia is still a big part of my damage, but Ninja's really not far behind. And it's important to note too that I'm also giving Acrizia a ton of turn meter and cooldown reduction with Lamasu in manual mode. But if my Ninja was a higher level blessing and in better gear, his gear is good, but it's not as good as Acrizia, who's in Merciless. So she's getting extra turns. She's 9-piece Merciless. Boom, extra turn, extra turn, extra turns. Like, she just goes crazy. Ninja doesn't have the access to Merciless on this account. I don't have the accessories yet. So we're just not there. But Ninja would be able to out damage Acrizia pretty easily. And so, in fact, I wonder if we take a look here. Yeah, so Varl doing a ton of damage. Marius is kind of an entirely different beast. Oh, wow. Yeah, like, look at this. This is a great example. Look at what Krokod did here. 346 million, with Marius only doing 245, and Acrizia doing 187, right? So that's just very, very large amounts of damage coming out. And Krokod only with a 5-star blessing, both of them having full 6-star blessings, and that Krokod's still doing more. There's no enemy max HP in the Krokod's kit. I don't think it's enemy max HP, at least. I want to double check that, but yeah, it's all damage based on attack. The multipliers are just good. He just hits hard, especially with Shayak in the team, right? And so it's just important to understand, because I see it all the time where people are like, well, I have to take Newt. And it's like, yeah, but you have Ninja, or you have this champion that can do more damage. No one could do more damage than Newt. I think people get tunnel vision on that type of stuff when it comes to boss damage dealers that do enemy max HP. Now, let's talk about a few other really important kind of niche examples of boss damage. Right? So certain bosses are going to require different strategies at certain stages. So you can see on this stage, this team, I'll go ahead and run one of these. A little waste of energy, but that's fine. So this team is all about poisons, because the poisons can wave clear pretty effectively like that. But this boss just takes so much more damage from poisons. And I've used enemy max HP champions against this boss, and it ends up being a much longer run. We're talking 1 to 2 minutes. And albeit the wave is going a little bit slower than I would like, but you're going to see how quickly things are going to go on the boss once we get there. There we go. Okay, so poisons on the boss. We're going to... there. He activated them by taking his turn. Activated. We're going to get activated. And you can see those are just huge chunks of damage. And of course, he took a turn and just it went even further down, right? And so, but not my best time, right? 56 seconds, a little bit longer than I would like, but still, you can see it can do up to 30 seconds when things are going well. And then likewise, I'm not going to run this team, but likewise, I basically have a team that is using Artak to do burn damage on the Ice Golem, right? Because he is sensitive in hard mode to HP burns, and so we just churned through those burns. So that's still a boss killer in some ways, right? But it's a much longer run. We're talking, it can go as fast. I think that 1 minute and 11 is actually me probably building like a fast team for the Tholen stuff, because it's not that fast. It can't go a minute and 11. So obviously we've talked about him a little bit already. Marius is another really good boss damage dealer, and I think what makes Marius great is that he just hits hard with all of his abilities, where like Newt has an A3 that does enemy max HP, and his A1 is kind of weak, right? Which is fine, but everything hits hard out of the horse. Likewise, you could say the same with Acrizia, but because they're all enemy max HP damage, you're gonna have limits on that damage that comes out, where those limits don't necessarily apply to all of the other damage coming out of the horse. So just important to kind of understand that. So I wanted to talk about a few other damage boss killers as well. So another one that has to be talked about is Geomancer. Geomancer, probably, definitely in the top 5 epics, but for me, probably the best epic in the game, just honestly. I'm sure there's probably a few void epics that can come really close. You know, one that particularly comes to mind is Godseeker. You know, for any players that don't have Godseeker, they're going to sit there and tell you how important she can be. So, but Geomancer is just so unique in his ability to do boss damage. Just a cornerstone of any early, mid-game, and then even like the early stages of late game. Geomancer is probably your guy that's pumping out that damage until you get some better gear. And it all kind of comes down to the passive, where as long as he's got burn up on the enemy, he's deflecting massive amounts of damage and doing 3% to the target's max HP, which is basically almost a War Master proc. And oh, by the way, he can also have War Master, so you're just boom, 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 boom. It's nuts. I don't have any teams currently built with Geomancer. I don't use him anymore. I've kind of gotten away from him, but it is kind of just very, very powerful. And I've talked about him in Aox in other videos as well, how they can team up and pair together against Iron Twins if you're struggling there. So I highly recommend that team. There's also Whisper. Now, this is not my own experience. I have never really built my Whisper the way that I should, to be completely honest with you guys. However, I am a fan of other content creators, just like you guys are, and I've seen all the videos that Saf has put out about Whisper. I haven't built her myself. This gear isn't anything special, but I do know that she can be that boss damage dealer for you, and I highly recommend investigating that. I've got, no disrespect, I've got Acrizia. Like, the need for Whisper and building her when, you know, I don't have enough gear to go around to all my nukers as it is, I've just put her on the back burner. That's on me. That's my bad, right? But I believe wholeheartedly that she is going to be a very powerful boss damage dealer for a lot of accounts. Oh, you know what? There's a rare that we need to talk about as well. Coldheart. Coldheart is one that gets very, very slept on these days. Or maybe not slept on, but not talked about enough, because she does do enemy max HP damage, right? With this ability. This is a boss killing ability. It's on a 4-turn cooldown, so it's a little bit longer cooldown than some of the others, which is, you know, can be frustrating, and she's super squishy, which is really, really annoying. I don't know how else to put it other than the fact is annoying to have such a squishy champion. The good news is that you only need to build her to 70% crit rate as well, because this has an additional 30% chance to crit. So that's really good. It allows you to maybe get more longevity and life out of her in general. So that's another great option. Armiger can be pretty good too. Armiger does have an enemy max HP, but the multipliers are not quite there. He's uncommon, so it's harder to get your stats where you might want them to be. I'm gonna call out Drak. I would love to see a world's strongest Armiger video. I'm really curious about that. Sometimes bosses or champions that do a lot of damage in arena are also going to do a lot of damage to your bosses too, right? I just talked about my Dark Fae team where Thor's in there, right? And he's doing good damage. He clears the waves pretty easily and kills my own team that gets copied pretty easily, but he can still do pretty consistent damage to the boss. And when it comes to Hydra, he's very strong in something like Hydra. And you can see he's actually out damaging my 6-star Ascended Harima. Harima's a little bit weaker in this composition composition because she doesn't have Mikage, which is unfortunate. Still, this team is kind of focused on Harima, so Thor outdamaging Harima is good to see, right? And it makes me happy to see that. So Thor can just smack, plain and simple. Trunda's worth mentioning in there, and obviously Titus, right? We all can see what Titus can do. So dominant right now in the game, doing 2 billion damage on Clan Boss. Just one of those fusions that so disappointed that I wasn't able to get. But another thing that I want to mention about, specifically about the enemy max HP champions that I love so much. When we talk about Ninja, right? I've got Lethal on Ninja. Maybe Savage might be an option as well for damaging those bosses. But the thing that I love about your enemy max HP champion is that you don't need the ignore defense gear, right? Now I do have that on my Acrisia, but I mostly have this on her for extra turns, to be completely honest. I have this for 9-piece. Like, I'm not even like really worried about anything else. I just want that 9-piece to get extra turns and get more enemy max HP. It does help that she gets a ton of ignore defense from the kit, so she's able to smack really hard even when I don't have everything going right. So I do love this build on her for sure. She hits maximum damage on every single hit. It's awesome to see. But anyways, I feel like I've talked enough. I feel like I've kind of explained my thought process to you guys pretty well about, you know, what it means to be a boss damage dealer. Is somebody like Rhodos going to hit really hard? Yeah, sure. Are they going to be the best damage dealer in Hydra or Chimera? No, probably not, right? And that's kind of what I want to make sure that players understand. But for Clan Boss, hell yeah, I would take a Rhodos for Clan Boss. In fact, if you guys followed my free-to-play series, the last one that I did, not the last one, the second to last one I did during the competition, Alice was my top in Clan Boss. She was out damaging Calvalax and Kale, who were both doing poison damage. So if you build your champions right, they're going to really smack in Clan Boss, but maybe not so much in some of the other areas of the game. All right, guys, thank you so much for watching. If you're new here, please consider subscribing, and I look forward to seeing you all in the next video. Take care.